You've been talking to any of these agencies about that?
Have, just on a cursory basis. We've got the old senior center building on 22nd and L that we're not going to be reusing. And trying to determine what the long-term use is. To me, social services is an area that might be a good fit for that. Got the big senior center, big senior living across the street, something that's compatible with Gulf Breeze. Which entities to share, let them share. I want to make the building is not great leverage, but it is an asset that we can let somebody use, that we can help. So we're trying to find some players who want to do it. We've got a couple in mind. Talked to Harold Faddick. He's one that has a history of doing this type of stuff, and we'll probably be tapping Harold to help us. Catholic Charities may be one of the players. Gleams of the Harvest. Mark Davis is another one that seems like one that wants to kind of do things a little different than we've always done it. And anyways, so that's just a whole area that I've not really delved into on an extensive basis, but is on the horizon.
After the storm, it appeared that we might lose UTMB, at least as we know it.
Sure.
And back then, the key legislators made it absolutely clear that the county had to put some more money into the treatment, to cover the treatment of local people who cared for it. UT system made that clear that there was really not going to be any hope at all of a new surgical tower unless the county got involved. If you were in that seat again, same time, would you play those cards any differently?
The end result, no. I supported the tax increase associated with getting the county up to the 100% federal poverty level for the secondary and tertiary care. I haven't thought through whether I'd play some of the cards leading up to the final decision different. I knew going in, the concept of selling the hospital district was not going to be a popular road to travel. There were some, and still are some merits to that concept of voter approval, open process, etc. It's certainly, whether it's a streamlined version or not, it's certainly another bureaucracy. But I tell you what, the discussions about a hospital district did. It created a lot of angst and created some conversation. And while the public debate wasn't real broad, sometimes I think we have a tendency to say when 3 or 4 people get together and start raising heck about something, all of a sudden that's a groundswell, when it's really the same 3 or 4 people that weigh in on a lot of public issues. But it did force a lot of public discussion on it. I think through y'all's help and others, it educated the community on what the issues were and how we could go about solving it. So, yeah, maybe I would change some things on some of the way we went about things. Might have changed, but at the end of the day, in my mind, we had no choice. We did the right thing to levy the tax, the amount that we levied, and the crystal ball we used was kind of developed from 2 different perspectives to try to make sure we looked at it from different angles. The health district did their analysis, and then Curtis Brown in his office with Montgomery County Health District, Hospital District, did their analysis on our population and history, et cetera, to come up with what we thought might be the number of people accessing and what the cost would be. The UTMB deal was not the underlying issue was not health care for indigents. That is an important part of it. I mean, UTMB is a research center, especially with the national lab. It's a medical delivery facility for both indigent and card carrying insurance members. It's a teaching hospital, and it is a economic engine for employment. And so, you know, the thought of not having UTMB back to quote full speed pre-Ike, it just wasn't, it just couldn't happen. And, you know, I think we've already seen that, you know, they're not going to come back like they were before Ike in the same form, the same, you know, they're diversifying their locations, etc. But, and I know it's not good for the city of Galveston per se, but for Galveston County, you know, they're going to be moving back towards more jobs and good jobs and a time when we need it. And so, no question about it, we made the right decision.
Based on that, just kind of a dovetail of when the decision gets made, and based on the information you have, but then when, you know, as you say, how it turned out, you've done differently. If you could, there's about roughly $10 million that didn't get spent. That was that, you know, of course, you know, and folks are interpreting that different ways. So I just wanted to be on the record about it. The money that has not been spent, what's going to happen to that? Is that going to be shifted to the general revenue, or right now does it stay in what amounts to a healthcare lockbox? Kind of just walk through that process.
Sure. We, as a result of all this, internally we created a separate fund. The money was generated from a general fund tax, and then we made a transfer from the general fund over to the indigent health care fund. So there is a separate fund. It is segregated from the general fund. When we talk about general fund balances, this roughly $10 million is not part of that. It will stay in that indigent health care fund. This saga is far from over. This is still not a clear picture as to where we will be with health care in Galveston County. You've got both the county and the city are dealing with CDBG housing and all the public housing issues that the city has on its plate. Where that goes, does that attract new people back to the community or old neighbors back into our community? So that still has to play out. You've got, while we are still optimistic that UTMB will build that surgical tower and they'll come back like everybody had talked and discussed, that hasn't happened yet. We've got a legislative session that's getting ready to start in January, and everybody knows they're going to be in a tight fix up there. You know, it's one thing to build the facilities, but you got to operate the facilities once you build them. So how does the Texas legislature treat UTMB's budget? And is the money still there to operate this new tower? That's going to impact the national health care. I don't know, I've been trying to find out for 6 months. I don't know of anybody who really knows what is in that bill and how it's going to play out. What seems to be somewhat of a consistent statement is that the national health care may have a positive impact on our budgetary stuff, both on our, particularly our retirees as well as the indigent or the poorest part of the population. But we don't know yet. So in my mind, we're still 2 or 3 years from letting this thing settle out and see which path we're going to drive down. So until that happens, this money stays in the indigent health care fund and will allow us to, again, as I said a minute ago, we tried to take the big peaks and valleys out of county government, county finance. That fund balance will help us meter that out. If we have to react with a higher tax or a lower tax, we can do it because we've got the money aside.